Oh, there we go. Hello, friends.
Good evening.
It's time for episode 125 of the Blue Ribbon Podcast, brought to you by Pittsburgh Power. Now, makers of OPS and max mileage. We've been sitting here trying to think about what to talk about on this podcast. I guess one thing we should make mention of is that Tom Bach passed away. Was he the founder? Was he what was,
No. He worked for the original OPS people. He was like their outside consultant.
okay.
What most people know Tom for is if you got a lab report back and there was something wrong, like a 3 or 4 condition, Tom would call you and give you let you know, number one. And
Mm-hmm.
number two, he would kind of walk you through some typical things that could be the cause. Um, he was always at the Louisville Truck Show in the booth, and he and Artie were the first two guys that were the face of OPS as far as the being out at events like that. And Artie passed away a couple of years ago,
Hmm.
and of course I met both of them at the CMC years ago, and thought really good guys, both of them, and I'm sad to hear that Tom passed away this week. I noticed we hadn't heard from him in a while, and I didn't know if maybe Pittsburgh Power was not using him or what, but it turns out he was evidently ill. So, but yeah, that's kind of sad. We talk about Pittsburgh Power every weekend, and I want to just reiterate that I was a Pittsburgh Power customer, in starting in 2009, and we've promoted their products because that's what I used. Developing the lunatic truck, that we now recommend and drive, and so their products are integral in that in the modifications that we do and the things that we do. So I just want to make sure everybody understands we don't just, I mean, we are sponsored by Pittsburgh Power and we are paid, some money to do this, but that's not why we recommend them. We recommend them because of that's the company that we work with the most in most of our modifications. And the companies that we don't work with directly, usually Pittsburgh Power is a distributor for those, like Fleet Air Filter
Mm-hmm.
and and other things. So another thing I want to bring up is that we could really help. This really helps us here. If you will hit that like and subscribe, if you like what we do, I see right now we have 17 or 18 people live. We need to have 18 thumbs up there, guys. We need some likes there. That helps us a lot with our sponsorship. So if you like what we do, let us know. The other thing is if you call Pittsburgh Power, and I hope you do, uh, and um, and buy stuff from them or take your truck there, be sure and let them know that you heard about them on our podcast,
Yep.
and that helps as well. So, um, but anyway, appreciate you guys doing that. So,
So I've got a little something I can share here. Facebook memories are kind of fun. They started doing that a few years ago. And it's one of the first things that I look at, in the morning when I open my phone and I go to the Facebook memories. What was happening on this day, over the last few years? And this article that I had shared popped up from Overdrive magazine. And Todd Deals wrote it. It's 13 reasons you hang on to that old truck. And, they went through here, of course, talking about glider kits, which were still all the rage back then, but talking about, the difference in truck payments and insurance and keeping, keeping your older truck and not having to deal with a lot of the new stuff. And I had actually written a caption to go with that I kind of predicted that there might be a time when these new trucks became so unreliable, or if there was ever a part shortage, that the old trucks would be in demand. And the numbers don't lie, the math does not lie. We can show a larger profit and a lower cost of operation with a 1999 to 2007 model truck. We can serve our customers more reliably than if we had a fleet of 2022s right now. And I just found it interesting that 6 years ago, I was able to see that and do a little bit of Nostradamus and say, hey, this could be a big problem. And here we are in 2022, and it is sure enough a big problem.
Yeah, it's every day we see a post on one of the Facebook groups looking for someone to drive for temporarily while their truck. There's one that came up today. They're needing a CPC, and it's on back order for 6 months. They hope 6 months.
Yeah.
And
and you don't know, did the CPC go bad or did somebody bust a window out and steal it? It's one or the other.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I still haven't heard anybody explain to me what's so valuable about that CPC that the crackheads are breaking the windows and stealing them.
It's got to have precious metal in it, just like catalytic converters. So I'm sure it's being sold for the content. Or maybe not. Maybe there's just a black market on the parts. They can't.
Maybe they're using for crypto miners. They're mining crypto with them. Well, look, I think about this all the time because, when you're managing a fleet of this size, weekly there's something that comes up. There's some sort of issue with a truck, and of course, the older trucks they don't look as good. They're not as comfortable. They're not as quiet. They don't have the creature comforts that the newer trucks do. But I come back to the math because, just today I had a truck that came in for inoperable air conditioner, and we found a leaking wheel seal. Which, listen, I have been such a strong believer in Stemco wheel seals. Because that's what Dr. Monecutter taught me. But for some reason, we've had a bunch of failures here lately, and I'm real close to trying out another provider on wheel seals because it's getting ridiculous. This one truck's had 3 steer wheel seals, I know, in the last year and a half. It's getting a little crazy. So I don't know if they're having a manufacturing problem, but I'm getting real tired of changing wheel seals when I thought I had that problem fixed. But it's always something. There's something little, but the thing I struggle with the most getting the drivers to understand is it's much easier to be proactive and get to a problem before when it's a $300 problem rather than when it's a $3,000 problem. And I had a guy today that had some, some things that he should have noticed. And he's like, well, I just don't want to get on anybody's nerves. And I'm like, well, how's that working out for you? Because you're on my nerves pretty good right now. But we've got to think about, this is a long-term strategy. And I think it's kind of a big mistake that company drivers, especially that come into being an owner operator, being in business, in my opinion, is far superior than being an employee. I feel safer. I feel more secure. In owning and running a business rather than being an employee. The rewards are much greater, but you have to have a lot of long-term strategies, and you have to think about, okay, I've got this truck. I'm going to spend $1,500. I could spend $1,500 a month, and you got to be thinking about that. You have to save that money. Because you might spend $1,500 a month, or you might spend $20,000 at once. But it's just, it's a mindset. That's why we call it an identity change. To a lunatic, got my shirt on today. But it's, I don't know. It's just, it's such a difficult thing because, people just come from the company driver mindset, and it's really, really hard to turn that around. And you can't just close your eyes and pretend it's not happening. I'm a living testimony to that. You can't run from it. It will eventually catch up with you and find you.
Well, we still see that people are not conscious of the availability they have of cutting their cost. You know, they still there's a lot of people that still that the presumption is you have to do business the way that most people do, and that's just not true. We harp all the time about fuel costs, yet you know people are still not understanding how to buy fuel, not understanding the tools that we have at Landstar to help you decide where to buy fuel, and the difference, the savings just between in 1 mile per gallon, in speed, you know, um, 10 miles per hour is one full mile per gallon. Um, Yet, if you talk about that, everybody is under the assumption that if you can't drive 75 miles an hour, you can't make a living, and that's just not true. And so and with fuel as expensive as it has been, it really did not change drastically a lot of people's approach, and that's going to eventually catch up. I mean, it's coming back down, but the rates aren't. The rates aren't going back up. So it's still going to be critical to maximize um, your revenue and minimize the cost. And fuel's the easiest way to do it. I still, as much as we harp about cost per mile, I still highly, highly doubt that the majority of people who even listen to this podcast actually track and know what their cost per mile is. Yet every day they make decisions about loads to take, not understanding what it costs them to do it, and not understanding that if that cost per mile is out of line, that can be addressed, that can be lowered. Certainly, people that are going to get into business have the ability to make decisions up front that will lower or affect their cost per mile. We just talked to a guy this week who was a BCO who failed and wants to come here now, um, he bought too much truck. He had no experience. All the typical things. His cousin was doing it, so he thought he would go do it, and no prior experience. Found out that bumping a dock and unloading the truck will not keep you in business.
I'm looking at our fuel cost analysis that you posted this week, and our number one guy, the truck revenue was 10,715, and his fuel cost was 12% of revenue.
Right.
But then we had another guy that did within $120 of the same money, did $10,054, and his cost of fuel was 28% of revenue. So you had $120 difference in revenue, and one truck spent about almost $900 more in fuel.
Now, the one caveat to that is I'm not taking into consideration inventory. So if that one truck fueled the last day of the week, he'll be running that fuel next week. So you can't exactly by that. You could look at it over a period of time and it would even out. But on a 1 week basis, it could be. Now, I don't know this. I mean, we could look and see. But if he fueled, like if he filled up on, I think it's what's our fuel week run?
It's Sunday, right?
Yeah,
Sunday.
but it's our
what's it cut off on Friday?
It's based on our card activity statement, though. So what's the date on that? You're looking at it. What's the
8/13, 8/19.
8/19. That's the week. Okay. So if he fueled on 8/19, and he still got that fuel in the truck, so it'll be used this week. Now, the way you look at this, compare 2 weeks in a row or 3, and then you kind of get a better average.
Well, the top truck was also third on fuel mileage at 7.02, and the other guy was eighth at 6.07. So
that's a part of it too. Yeah.
1 mile per gallon is significant. But we track all this stuff because, in my estimation, there's probably nobody in the trucking industry that is good, as good at this as Larry. I sat and watched it. What was that, last year, year before? I came out and watched the sausage being made.
I think it was last summer.
And there is a lot of work that goes into it to set it up and get it going, and then it's just maintenance, of just doing it every week religiously, to make sure that you've got all the data in there. But once you have the data in there, then you can do these analysis. But if you don't have the data, you can't do the analysis. And so when I see people, well, what do I need to do to lease a truck to Landstar? And I want to maybe like start with a spreadsheet. You need to, that's really where you start. It's establishing your business before you even buy a truck. And if you're a company driver hearing the sound of my voice right now, you can do a spreadsheet on your company truck. You can create those habits. You can track this very same data that we have. Now, you might have to make up some financial numbers if you don't know, but you could go look at the DAT weekly report as to what the average rates are. That's all public domain information. So if the rates, 250 and the fuel surcharge is 63, do the math, and just say, okay, for every loaded mile I've run, it's this many, it's this much per mile. That's the average in the industry right now. You could use those numbers and then look at your real fuel and, any maintenance costs that you're privy to and start running a P&L on your truck to practice. Because I had a conversation with one of my mentoring guys the other day, and he made a couple of decisions that did not help his trip planning. And so he's in a position that right now he's got to run from Ohio to Texas like his hair is on fire to keep this $13,000 week that I've got him on right now together. And one thing I said to him was, look, had you done the math, which I know you didn't, and he's like, right, I didn't do the math. I say, okay, I believe that if you had done the math and you had a better trip plan, that subconsciously, maybe your brain would have not let you oversleep on that day. Maybe, maybe not. But I do know that you have to have that plan. Well, of course, the way we do it, I'm trying to book loads 3, 4, 5 days in advance because that's when the good money's out there. And I can put you together the best week's ever been. But if you miss the load in the middle, it all goes away, because if I have to start looking for you a load on the day that you need it, you're going to get a $1,200 load instead of a $2,500 load. I see a comment for Richie that says, can I give a PSA? Please do. I cannot wait to hear a public service announcement from Richie Matthews. So you just go ahead and type it up, son, and I will pop that right up on the screen. Poor Richie's sitting on the side of the road in North Carolina right now with a blown tire. So he's waiting on Love's, God help him, to come and rescue him.
Well, here's a common thread I see with people who come to Landstar and then get on Facebook and complain, is because they're not prepared to solve their own problems. That's the number one reason I say. When something goes wrong, they seek help from somebody. They seek assistance from somebody else. And the first thing I do is jump on Facebook and go, what do I do? This, and this happened. And at no point in time do they have a plan themselves to get themselves out of the situation they're in. And that's the big difference about Landstar. I love Landstar. Everybody knows that. I hate their advertising because all they talk about is freedom. All they talk about is freedom. And it's attractive to people who don't have that. And we've talked about it many, many times. You have this thing you talk about freedom from or freedom to. But the difference is Landstar does not have a support network for the BCOs by design. It's not a hit on the company. It's not designed for that. It's designed for someone who's an existing trucking company to join up with Landstar and do business together, with each person having defined roles. And one of the roles is not for Landstar to be your advisor, And so that's the thing that most people don't get. What's Landstar going to do about this? Well, nothing. That 39-page lease agreement that you signed when you came here stipulates that, if you'd bother to read it. And everywhere else that you've worked, you know, um, probably do. And but that's what makes Landstar so different, is that it's the closest thing to having your own authority without having your own authority, you know. And I believe for most people, having their own authority is a mistake. So, but you're not going to come here and get the babysitter. You know, that's just not going to happen. So you have to be able to solve your own problems when you come here. Buying a truck to come to Landstar is a horrible idea. Horrible idea. If you've never owned a truck and you're going to buy one and come to Landstar, I highly, highly, highly recommend you don't do that. Okay, because you don't even know anything about being a truck owner. And now you're going to come here and be a truck owner and also be at Landstar with no support system. And that's why 40% of the people who come here fail the first year. So somebody says we lost sound.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. So if I
I
can hear
I
you,
can
that
hear you.
means let me see. Are y'all still hearing us on YouTube? Because we are
David's on Facebook. Never mind. Must have been on your end. Okay, no problem. Good to hear.
okay.
Glad it wasn't us. We strive to achieve excellence in broadcasting here. So we
Well,
don't want to have that kind of hiccup. Okay. So
speaking of excellence in broadcasting, here's Richie's PSA. If you don't move out of the right lane when you see a broke down truck, you ain't no big time truck driver. Move your stinky ass. Um,
well,
listen, I've been there. I drove a record for a while in 2003, and people are stupid. You know, you're sitting on the side of the road trying to get something hooked up, and they come within 3 inches of you. It drives me insane. Um,
Michael Reed wants to know what the best fuel card is. Um, uh, we don't have to worry about that. Landstar has the best fuel card in the industry. So if you're not a Landstar owner operator here, the closest thing I've found to it, even though it's not even close, is Nastic. But again, we're not the authority there because we don't have to worry about that. When other fuel card companies contact me and I say Landstar, they hang up because they know there's no sense to have a conversation beyond that. So,
Brett Griffin, please discuss your daily routine for getting loads while driving on the road. Which form of computer do you like to use best, laptop or tablet? When I was on the road, I would use my iPad and my iPhone. When I first came to Landstar, um, the system was not all that friendly with Apple devices and Safari. Um, then they fixed that. And then when Landstar 1 came out almost 2 years ago, 18 to 24 months ago, that was kind of a game changer because then you had an app. But the most important thing is the load alerts. I'm exclusively a load alert guy. I set up my load alert. And when I get an email, I know that I am least interested in that load. If I'm getting an email for that load, it is within the reach of what I want. And then I have to look, okay, well, I've got my deadhead set for 100. Okay. Well, that's 100 air miles. I was looking for a load for somebody the other day in, I want to say South Carolina. And loads within 125 miles were 200-mile drive, because it was just some of the, like Richmond, Kentucky was coming up. And it was 240 to drive it, but it was showing up within 150 miles. So I've got to be careful that I don't get lured into an excessive deadhead based on the parameters that I'm setting up. So the big thing is set your load alert correctly. So when an email comes up, especially on an iPhone or even Android, when that email comes up, that phone number for that agent will be there, and boom, you can touch the phone number and you can have them on the phone. Because sometimes, if it's a really good load, you've got seconds. You don't have time to mess around. When the load alert pops up, if you want it, you better push that button and get to calling. The other thing is looking way ahead of time. You need to be looking 2 to 3, 4 days ahead. If
Absolutely.
you're, if it's Sunday, but let's say it's Monday right now, and I've got something happen, load canceled or whatever. I'm going to drop my parameters down to probably $1,000 or $1,200 because I would rather have something than nothing. If I can get a load booked into tomorrow that might be 300 miles, 200 miles, um, then I'm distancing myself out, and then I can look for the next day, and maybe I book one a little bit better. And on that third day, maybe I find an elephant, a $2,500 load I can pick up today and deliver tomorrow. So I've kind of got it down to a science. I know this past Monday I'd had a couple of guys that were coming off a home time, and Monday morning I needed to book loads for like 6 trucks. And within probably 2 hours, I probably booked 12 loads in 2 hours for 5 trucks. One guy, he had a 3-day week because he was coming off a deal where he's home time, and then he had to go, he had a vacation coming, and I booked his whole week in 20 minutes. I booked the first one, changed the load alert. Oop, I like that one. Booked it, changed the load alert. Look, boom, there was the third one. And in 15 minutes, I booked him $6,000 worth of freight for 3 days.
So, Brett, there's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind here. First of all, we book short loads. We book loads that are under 600 miles, so we bump a dock every day. So when I was driving, while I'm being unloaded, I'm looking for loads for next. We're working 3 or 4 loads out.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're parked, I had one of those laptop desks that attached to the passenger seat of the truck. I would swing it around, open my laptop up. I'd sit there and I'd work on my loads because I was already booked out for the next 2 or 3, 4 days. So I'm looking for loads, setting my load alert so that I'm looking for what I want. So I know that when I get a load alert, it's a load that I want. It's not so loose that I have to think about it, because if you have to think about it, you're going to lose the load anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the most important thing here is you have to be willing to stack loads, and you have to be willing to be able to recover when a load cancels, because that's what everybody's going to say about stacking loads. We stack loads for 17 trucks. Okay. And yes, every week, 1 or 2 or 3 of those loads cancel, but it's not enough to throw all the other
Correct.
70 loads that we do out the window and lose the revenue on them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't make decisions based on exceptions. Make it on what's normal. And normal is everything's not. Now, things tend to run in cycles. You're going to get in a situation where every 3 loads are going to cancel this week. Then you're going to go 2 or 3 weeks and not have any cancel. But if you're booking your own loads and you're driving, another good thing is having somebody that can watch that for you while you're driving. If you have a spouse or you have a significant other, or you hire somebody, to look for loads for you, that's money well spent, because that way you don't have to worry about doing that and driving the truck. It's not easy to drive a truck down and load and book loads. That's again why a lot of people come to Landstar struggle, because they've never had to do that before ever,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't decide whether to stop and book a load or drive. It's frustrating. I get that. That's what makes this difficult. But I would, if you're established BCO, and you've got agents that you work with, that's even better, because they're going to call you and say, "Hey, Brett, we've got this load. You've done it before. Here it is. Do you want it?" That's the easiest way to do it, because then you don't have to worry about looking at the load board at all. So
He's got a follow-up. That's a great question. Do you ever book the third day if it's great and then backfill?
absolutely.
Yes. Now it's a little risky, but like for example, I know one direct customer that has some loads out of the Southeast that are massive, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 loads, right? So I know, and of course you got to be days ahead because they go quick. But yeah, I could book, say, maybe a Friday weekend load for them that's $4,500, right? Well, then I know, hell, I've got half of my stuff done at that point. But then, if you've ever, in my mind at least, if this makes sense, it's like billiards. I'm not going straight for the corner pocket. I might have to bank off of one side, because I've got to think about, okay, this load is taking me to Ohio. Well, that's great. If a load's going to Ohio, perfect. Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, sometimes Southern Michigan, but my favorites are Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. If it's going anywhere in any one of those states, not a question, book it. If it's going to Norfolk, I have to stop and think about it because Norfolk sucks, especially here lately. My God, it's been a black hole. Massachusetts is another crapshoot. It's got to pay really good to go up there. Excuse me, because sometimes it's a struggle to get something out. There's some direct customer freight up there, but it's sometimes hard to find. So, you could absolutely do that, or what some guys call a triangle, where you find that one super good load, and then you find another one to connect to another one. And so maybe you get one side of the triangle done, and then you fill in the second side of the triangle, and then maybe you're just doing whatever you can to get back to the point A. If you can ever get all three of those, then you're golden.
Especially if that third day load is really, really, really good. Because then we're looking for a daily average. We're looking for a $2,000 daily average. So let's say that third day load is $4,500. Okay, so we don't have to have $2,000 every day now to get there. We could take a shorter load to get to that load if we had to. We could drop down and do a $1,200 or $1,500 load, and then at the end of the week we're still going to have our average. So that makes it easier to find that connecting load sometimes. As equally as important, though, as that third load is what's behind that one, because that, again, that third load could be great. But if it's taking you to Phoenix or Denver or Miami, no. So you have to watch what that monster load is and make sure there's something behind that one as well. So, and this just comes with experience in doing it, which is why we're so good at it. We've done it for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at a week that one of my guys is on right now. All right. Totals $9,450. And on our board, if a load meets the minimum, it's green. And if it doesn't meet the minimum, it's yellow. He has 5 yellow loads, that make up the week, and we were $550 short of making the goal, but we still hit 94.5% of the goal, which is pretty good, right? Especially in a market like this. So if his weekend load would have hit the minimum, the whole week would have been green, right? If I would have gotten $700 more on the weekend load, would have been fine. But that's what we're trying to do here. And then I had another guy that did 3 loads. All loads were green, and he was $10,054. So, but I have to think about if I've just come off of a $2,000 load, and I'm in a pinch, or I'm in someplace like Massachusetts, or I'm in Norfolk, or I'm in Southern South Carolina, South Georgia, Alabama, I might have to take a $1,200 load to get into the next day. Then I go, okay, well, I've got 3,200 in 2 days. I'm $800 short. Well, what if I book a 2,800 the next day? I'm right back in the money. So that's how we have to do it. And you just have to have some strategy about it, because if it was just about my personal preference as a driver, and there was no other extenuating circumstances, I didn't have to be home with my family, and it was just about what made me happy as a driver, give me Columbus to Seattle and back. I hit 2 docks a week. I got lots of time to listen to podcasts and audiobooks. I don't have a lot of traffic to deal with. There's not big major cities. That would be my preference as a truck driver. But you're going to run as many miles or more to go out there for less money than we make doing 5 loads a week, which is a little more hectic, a little more stressful, a little more work. But we're in business to make a profit, not to just do what I want to do all the time. And that's the big thing that I see with people, that they try to put the cart before the horse, and they see the people that have been at Landstar for years that can do the 1.7 loads a week, but their house is paid for, their truck's paid for, the motorcycle's paid for, the boat's paid for, and they have the financial strength and well-being to do that kind of stuff. But when you've got even if you have a paid for lunatic truck, when you have a new business, you need to get your ass to work. And you need to be saving lots of money, because you're going to have days like I don't know if you said it on the Facebook post today, something about a trailer. There was something wrong with the trailer, and we had to cancel a load. We're thinking about leaving Landstar. You don't have to be in trucking more than 5 or 10 minutes to know that stuff happens. Trailers are going to break, trucks are going to break, loads are going to cancel. And so, of course, I made some comments about it. And I'm like, well, would you leave Landstar if your truck broke down? Would you leave Landstar if you hit a deer? Would it be Landstar's fault? And is Landstar supposed to fix the problem if you have any of these other issues? And there was one smartass in there that was like, oh, well, it's pretty funny coming from a guy that left because his truck broke. Well, yeah, it's hard to pull freight with a blown engine. But I was very clear then, and I'm very clear now, that it was not Landstar's fault, the agent's fault, the government's fault, or Jesus's fault. It was me. I was very clear about that. I've been very clear about that. And that's why we do this podcast, because I don't want anyone to ever experience the hellish nightmare that I did.
It must have been on Landstar Hating Landstar, because I didn't see it.
No, it was another one, the Good, Bad, and Ugly, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not in that neighborhood.
Great questions, Brett. Brett Griffin. Oh, you don't spot for Clint Boyer, do you? Spotter named Brett Griffin.
Who won the race today, by the way?
Kyle Larson.
Okay.
And that concludes your weekly NASCAR report on the Blue Ribbon Podcast.
A lot of people have different strategies for booking loads, and again, keep in mind, we're a high performance, high profit organization, because we have to be. But even when it was just me, I was a high performance, high profit, made $1 million in 4 years. Okay. So it's, but my philosophy is, if I'm going to be out there working, I'm going to be making a lot of money. Otherwise I'm going home. So I didn't truck for fun. I didn't truck to do something I wanted to do. I didn't truck to be in a certain part of the country. I trucked to make money. Matter of fact, the loads that I ran, everybody thought I was nuts for running them, but I made $1 million. So, you have to understand what you're doing this for. I believe that if you're in business, your requirement is to make as much money as you possibly can. What we do here is very, very hazardous and very, very hard. So why not make all the money you can in the shortest amount of time, and then do something that's not going to take you for your family, or be able to back down and do the 1 or 2 loads a week, because you've got the money in the bank and you're set. But until then, like Chris says, you got to get your ass to work and get this done. You can certainly make $1 million in this business in a few years. If you'll live like Dave Ramsey says, live like nobody else, so that in a few years you can live like nobody else. All those things apply here just like they do in your personal life. And that is, go pay cash for a truck. Don't go into debt. Don't spend money on things you don't need to. Make as much as you can. Get a side hustle. In this business, all your side hustle is pull another load, And in a few years, you will be in a situation where you don't have to worry about it. And then when the bloodbath comes, or fuel gets to be $6 a gallon, you're laughing at everybody else's panic, because it doesn't affect you. So, do we run hazmat loads? We do, because they pay good money. Or it's not that they pay good money, but we don't care whether it's hazmat or not. It gets us where we want to be. Just like the example you had, if you book that big monster load for 3 days from now, and the only load that gets you there is a hazmat load, why would you turn that down? There's really no downside to hazmat. The best department in the entire company at Landstar is a hazmat department. If you're concerned about hazmat, send them a picture of your trailer, send them a scan of your paperwork, and before you leave there, you will be legal, and there's not anything else to worry about. So,
and here's another PSA for you. This is my opinion. There is no excuse whatsoever for ever receiving a hazmat violation. Can they nick you on some chafed brake hose or something that you could only find if you were getting under your truck with a creeper every day? Absolutely. But there is no excuse whatsoever that you should ever receive a hazmat violation, because it is too easy to make sure your paperwork's right, make sure your load is secured, and that you have the correct placards secured on the trailer. That's
Oh,
all it takes.
and by the way, those plastic square things they give you at orientation, those aren't Frisbees. If you'll peel that blue stuff off of them and put those on the outside of your placards, when you put them in the placard holder, the placard won't blow away and you won't get written up for missing a placard. That's why they're there. So hazmat does not enter into our decision-making process. If the load's hazmat, it's hazmat. Okay?
Let me give a shout out to my boy Randy Metter, fellow BCO, one of our new guys. Showed up at the truck stop this weekend, and I looked at his trailer and something's missing. He had 2 placards that blew off. And so we start scrambling around trying to find them.
Explain why they blew off.
I said, "Did you use the placard protectors?" "No." "Why not?" I didn't think, So I called Randy. I start scrambling around, and I texted Randy. I'm like, "Hey, do you have any Class 9 placards?" And he was like, "Yeah, I got some." And so he brought them down to us this morning, and bailed our driver out from a hefty hazmat violation had he been caught with missing placards. But that's the kind of stuff when I'm thinking, how am I going to fix this? And the worst case scenario would have been that, Hazmat emailed me the numbers. And she's like, "Look, if you can't find the right placards, turn them over, make them white, tape the number to it, and you'll be legal." But we were able to work it out. And save every placard. Don't throw them away when you are done with them. Keep them and stick them in your door pouch or stick them up above the wherever in a cabinet somewhere. And that way, if you're ever in a position where one blows off, or you can cut and paste and make legal placards out of old ones. So don't ever throw your placards away. Always keep them.
You do this long enough, you'll have a milk crate full of them, and you organize them, by class. And if you're going to haul hazmat, ask for an extra placard or 2. Okay,
always
ask for an extra placard, and that way, if you do lose one of them, you've got one in the truck. But if you'll use those plexiglass placard covers, they're not going to blow out. Okay, I'm just telling you right now, not going to do it. Not going to get wet, and if they didn't give you enough at orientation, all you have to do is I'm going to get you the address. All you got to do is email. Let's see what it is. BCO
supplies.
BCO agent supplies at Landstar.com. BCO agent supplies at Landstar.com, and they'll send you all you want. So. Or go by any orientation center.
The very first load that I booked Richie on when he came here was a load of empty totes. And he got up there and needed 32 placards, 8 on each side. And we got to looking at the paperwork, and one of them was wrong, or didn't have one or something. And he ended up, I don't know if he broke into the building, but he somehow got inside. And so we got the situation rectified.
Yeah,
his first load was.
It took him, I think, longer to get the placards on the truck. It did get to get loaded.
Oh yeah, it was.
He had 8 on each side,
and had to run through Pennsylvania and couldn't get on the turnpike, so we had to figure out routes and go through the woods.
Here's another thing: you should always carry some kind of clear tape with you, because no trailer we own has 8 placard holders on it on each side. You're going to find some with 4, but you're not going to find any with 8. So the only way he could put those on there is he either had to stick them or he had to tape them, depending on what they're made out of. So that's another thing you ought to do.
And while we're handing out helpful hazmat advice, you need a little butane torch, especially in the wintertime.
Yes, you do.
Because if you'll take a little handheld butane torch and just wave it over that placard, that thing will peel right off. You don't need a
Let me
knife.
let me tell you what you don't do is you don't take your black spray paint out and spray paint over them, okay? Because we've had that happen too to trailers we've picked up. So
Oh, look here. Currently filling the tires myself so the mechanic doesn't get blown up from inflating them to 130. I wish we could live stream him right now.
we run our super singles at well, we'd love to run them at 140, but we hardly find anybody that will do 130. Usually about 120, 125 is all they'll do. So Richie's, I guess, is using the guy's hose and compressor, and I'm surprised it goes to 130. He's airing up his own tires.
Yeah, so. It's probably not going to go much more over 120 or 125 with that mobile compressor.
Probably not. Now, Richie's the same guy that rented a wrench to a TA guy one night. You remember that?
Yeah. That was so good. The everything that we do. My wife stole the BSC 9000. I was going to hold it up in front of the camera, but again,
I've got an accountant's version of it. I can hold it up for you.
There you go. Every decision that we make is based on the math. If the math works, we do it. If the math works, we do not do it. There it is. That's the super fancy. That's the BSC 10,000.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here to make money. I mean, that's what we're here to do. Like Larry said, it's not a hobby, it's a business. And I was driving past one of my favorite restaurants today and looking over, and it's just a sole proprietor, place called Fireside. It's right across from the TA. If you're ever in a hurry, you can run over and get some of them fried deviled eggs, or what's in mushroom things you like? Stuffed mushroom?
Crab stuffed mushroom.
Oh, buddy.
But that'll change your life right there.
Yeah. And they've got these deep fried deviled eggs that have sriracha sauce and anyway.
Yeah.
But
by the way, I'll be in West Virginia this weekend.
So. Do you think that guy does that restaurant as a hobby, or he does it to make money? You know? And I bet you he knows the cost of every cup of ranch dressing that I get from him, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure he dreads when you come in the door.
Well, I like a little salad with my ranch.
We'll go in there next time. There'll be a little thing stuck, a little label on the menu. Extra ranch dressing is $1. You watch.
But we don't make decisions based on emotion. You know, we factor in previous experience. We factor in what's this going to cost. But like right now, here's Richie sitting on the side of the road. There's a lot of stuff we don't have any control over. We have control of the price of the tire because we're going through LCAP, and that's going to cover the road call. But how long's he been sitting there? 3 hours at least. You know, when you're in a situation like that, you just can't control it. And, you know, you just have to hold your breath and hope that it's not going to, you know, but that comes with being in business. You know, you're going to get a ridiculous bill, and then you've got to have the intestinal fortitude to say, nope, I'm not paying that.
Or give me that hose. I'm going to air this tire up.
Yeah. But it's just reading the bill, you know, the Larry taught me that. I read every single line of every bill, and it's hard to tell how many thousands of dollars that I have taken off of bills from them either being coded incorrectly or charge them for stuff they didn't do. I'm going to be watching this one today because I had to go to Napa and buy the wheel seal because they didn't have one. And you can bet your ass I'm going to be watching to make sure they didn't charge me for a wheel seal that I went and got on my own. But I have to watch every line. You can't, it's not that, it's that you can't trust them.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
No, I've told that story. My first experience with this was I was getting my truck worked on at the Freightliner dealership in my town, and I go to pick up the bill, and I'm just used to doing that. I've been in business for almost 50 years. I mean, so I pick up the bill, and I see this it's like $150 for wire. I'm thinking, my God, what could we? Was it like a wiring harness? And he goes, no, he's just about 6 or 8 inches of wire. I'm like, well, how in the hell did it cost $150? Well, then their faces start turning red. They start looking at each other, and they go back and investigate, and they pulled the wire out the shelf, and they put the part number in the system for the whole spool of wire. So they charge you for the entire spool of wire instead of 6 inches. But most everybody would have paid that bill and not even looked at it. And so from that point on, we never paid another bill without going over it. And listen, Chris, how often do we pay a bill without changing it?
Oh, hardly ever.
Hardly ever. Hardly ever.
Now, I'm going to tell you, since is it this week, the brake safety week's coming up?
Coming up, I was going to say, coming up, it's 2021 through 20, whatever. It's right. It's today.
Yeah, it starts today.
Yeah,
I went to
the ass chafing week. Okay.
I went to AutoZone today while they were working on the air conditioner and the wheel seal. I just was looking around, and I saw a couple of brake hoses that were touching some stuff. And I went over to AutoZone, and for $6, I bought some wire loom, and I had some zip ties, and I went in and started zip tying brake hoses and putting loom on them. And one, I went and got a piece of heater hose and sliced it, and, little stuff like that. I mean, $6 of loom and probably another $3 piece of hose will probably save that truck, if he gets inspected, from being either put out of service or get some kind of BS violation for something that's not a problem. But, that's supposed to be their thing, is chafing hoses this week. They'll be chafing a lot more than hoses.
Yeah, I was going to give you 2 public service announcements. One of them is that this is CVSA Brake Safety Week. Emphasis on the safety part, okay? Not money, safety, mind you, okay?
It's all about safety, citizen.
So be aware that, and their emphasis, they've published it, is on chafing hoses. So now that's the one that if you piss the guy off anytime, not just this week, that's the one he can always write you up for, is a chafing hose. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a truck off the showroom floor and the hoses will be chafed on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is 2290s are due by August 31. You got 10 days to get your 2290s forms filed. So
well, Richie wants to give a little shout out to the tech there at Love's in somewhere in Tennessee.
I don't think it's Love's, it's TA, I think.
No, it's not TA, it's a Love's.
Really?
I'm almost positive it's a Love's.
I thought he said it was a TA.
The front desk robot didn't want to come out and get his tire until 8:00 in the morning. The tech overheard and said he would come and get it done now. So rather than him sitting on the side, which wouldn't have happened, they'd have called and make us tow it or something. But
well, that's good. I'm glad to see. See, I told you it was TA.
I'll be damned. I never would have believed it. TA Kindler.
Kudos to, now, not to TA, but to this tech. Okay. Because TA wasn't going to come out to 8:00 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the one that closes at midnight. And every time I have tried to get something done there, it's been a complete waste of time. So there's the PSAs for brake safety. Okay, we're talking about booking loads. Let me tell you a little something. There's a lot of hate that goes toward people that are agents at Landstar that may or may not have a foreign accent. But I can tell you this: I've got a couple of them saved. That if I'm in a position, I can call them up and be like, "Hey, man, I'm in a situation and I need a load. I need you to go find me one." And so, out of all the, I can tell you, because I've got them marked as direct or not, I'm going to say a good 50% of the loads that I booked last week were with third-party agents. Now, cold calls. If you are a BCO and they have access to your phone number, you will get phone calls and text message. Now, the text messages, whatever, I can just ignore those. Most of them suck. I have booked a few loads that way, though. I booked one for Brian this week off of a text message cold call. $4,200 for 2 days. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll take that load. Thank you. Here's the truck number and email. But one of my guys got a phone call this week from an agent offering him a load. And apparently he said something to the effect of, oh, well, that sounds like a good load, but you'll have to call my dispatcher. Now, this guy's been with us. Brand new guy.
First week.
Literally been with us 3 days.
Yeah.
He gets this phone call and he says, well, you got to call my dispatcher. So she calls me and she tells me about this load. And I said, okay. And it was going exactly where I needed him to come to West Virginia. And the load was coming to Charleston. And I thought, okay, all right, it's great. I said, is this load posted? No, it's not posted. I said, okay, well, tell me about it. So she tells me about it. I look it up. It's a 300-mile deadhead. And I said, well, it's a 300-mile deadhead. No, thank you. Well, the driver wants the load. And I said, well, I don't really give a damn what the driver thinks. I'm the dispatcher. I booked the loads, and I'm telling you that I'm not going to do a 300-mile deadhead for a $1,400 load. Now, had it been a 5-mile deadhead, it would have been perfect, but it wasn't. It was a 5-hour deadhead. And she says, well, I'll call the driver. And I said, you will not call the driver. I am the dispatcher. I make these decisions, and I'm telling you, we don't want this load. Thank you. Have a nice day. And I hung up. She called me right back. Well, I can add 35 cents a mile deadhead. And I said, I don't know what part of, first of all, I don't know what part of, I don't want this load you didn't understand, but I'm not taking this load, period, end of story. But I don't have 5 hours to deadhead. I can't even make the pickup. It's 5 hours away. Okay, well, the driver said he wants this load, so we're going to book it. And that's when my head exploded. And I was screaming at this woman at the top of my lungs. So I hang up again. I text the driver. I said, if she calls you, do not answer the phone. And of course, he's like, yep, she's ringing right now. Well, he had given her my cell phone.
Whoa.
But my office line here is a different number, and it's listed for all the trucks. So then she calls my office line thinking she's going to go around me. And when I answered the phone, she just immediately hung up. So I looked up her agent code in our board, and I found another agent with a different phone number, and I called him. And he said his name was Bobby, which there's no way it was something like Igor or, something like that. That's his real name. Anyway. And I said, listen, man, I book a bunch of loads with y'all, but this woman is harassing me and she's harassing my driver. And if y'all don't fix it, I'm going to call operations and I'm going to fix it permanently. And he goes, well, give me your phone number. And then he calls me at like 5 minutes. He calls me back and goes, this is not a problem. She will not call you anymore. And I'm like thinking, God, now she's in a gulag and a Siberian prison somewhere. I have not been that pissed off in a long time, and I've not screamed at anybody at the top of my lungs in a long time. So, said all that to say this. You can say no, right? But if you don't know your cost per mile and you're not willing to say, okay, pause, slow down, let me look at the numbers, let me look. Does this load match what I need to do? If not, the answer is no, thank you, and have a nice day. Generally, that's the way it goes. No, thanks, I'm not interested. Okay. They're disappointed. And if they start rattling on, I just press the button and hang up on them. But I have booked some great loads off of cold calls. It's rare, but it has happened. But you cannot let someone pressure you and harass you into taking a load that you don't want and you don't need. The only way to know if you need it and if you want it is if you have done the math and you know your cost and you know that load is going to do for you what you need it to do.
Now, usually calls come now. Again, Chris books loads for 17 trucks. So, or is it 18 now, Chris?
Well, it's 17 total, but I'm booking personally for 8.
Okay. So we deal with a lot of different agencies. Okay. And a lot of these agents have sub-agents. So, we deal with a lot of different people. So we talk to lots of people. If you're booking your own loads and you get a cold call from somebody you've never heard of before, understand that they're not calling you because they know you and want you to do their load. They're calling you because they can't get the load covered. And so they
Right.
are desperately trying to get the load covered by catching somebody off guard who's driving down a road and doesn't know their cost and doesn't really know. And the other thing is, everything they're telling you now is word of mouth. Nothing's written. So half the things they're telling you may not prove to be correct when you get the rate con. Be
Mm-hmm.
very, very careful about taking loads off cold calls unless the agent's calling you because you've had a relationship with them in the past. Totally different story there. Totally different story.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you want because that load's going on there before it goes to the load board because somebody's trying to give it to you. But if it's the other case, and most of them are, understand if the load was that good, it'd have been covered, hours ago.
And here's a potential situation in some of these cases. So let's say the third party agent, the clickbait agent, um, books a load with C.H. Robinson. Okay. And then the driver falls off of it, breaks down, whatever. Okay. Well, now they probably do feel some responsibility to book that load, to get it on another Landstar truck. That's a potential situation that may lead them to be like, okay, look, I need a truck. So I'm going to start calling for trucks on that local area. Now, Keith is asking, how do you get agents to stop calling your drivers when you're the dispatcher? I have listed the drivers' numbers. Well, so have we, and they still get them somehow.
Well, I can tell you how. As an agent, you have access to the database that Landstar has for phone numbers. So I mean, you can, if you know what you're doing as an agent, I can find your phone number even if you unlisted. That's how they're accessing the Landstar, for lack of better words, personnel information, and that's how they're coming up with it. So it's really hard to do. I mean, you just have to we don't list any of our numbers. The only numbers we list are Chris's number, my number. That's the only number. But yet, if you've ever done business with an agency, they're going to say, all these big agencies, they're going to save your name and truck number and phone number in their database.
Mm-hmm.
So you can unlist it all you want to, but you can't unlist it out of their database if you've ever done business with them. But the smart ones, even if you haven't unlisted, they can find it. They can get it. So.
I don't care, man. If they can get me a freight bill, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who bills it. I want it to go in my trailer. I want to go deliver it, and I want to get paid. And again, that's that beauty of the Landstar system. That if an agent books a load with a broker, and that broker is approved and their credit is approved, Landstar is going to pay us, whether they get paid or not. We're getting paid, period. And that is a whole lot cheaper than factoring. By the way, wasn't it that same factoring company that shut off a bunch of fuel cards this week? I saw that Asian my guy talking about something, and I think I heard that same factoring company that went belly up, and a bunch of fuel cards got shut off this week. Mm-hmm. I never have to wonder if I have fuel unless Larry hadn't loaded the fuel card. That if there's a failure on getting fuel, it's in house. It's not Landstar, right? Yeah. And so that's one of those intangibles of people trying to compare apples and oranges. If you're not going to count the cost of the insurance and the factoring and the billing and the risk of not getting paid, having your own authority versus delivering a load and scan it in and you get paid, period. End of story. There's never a question. I don't know that we've ever not been paid on a load. Now we've probably built some detention that didn't get paid. But if we've delivered it and turned in the paperwork, we got paid, period. So, I wish I'm sure.
Well, let me qualify that. We haven't always gotten paid when we're supposed to get paid.
Well, right.
But we've always tracked it down and gotten it. Well, we got one right now that we're dealing with.
Yeah. Somebody made a coding error. Yeah. And when they made that coding error, then it has to go through, 7 levels of bureaucracy, but I got it released. Did they pay that?
Well, we won't know till Wednesday.
Well, they were supposed to put it on the settlement card, so that's why I was wondering.
Oh, that one they did, but I'm talking about the one. I'm talking about the one that we didn't get paid on at all, like 2 weeks ago. Remember they left the fuel surcharge off completely?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. They were supposed to put that on the settlement card on like Thursday. Anyway.
Okay.
But again, if you don't ever make the phone, well, here's an even better example. My dedicated customer, and I had forever. One of the things that we agreed upon to get me back on that load when I came to Landstar was that the customer would pay all the tolls. And so for, what was it, about 25 weeks, I was turning the tolls in and the agent wasn't turning it into the customer. And so we found out, like literally 25 weeks later, that we weren't getting paid, and I had to go back and I had to reconcile 25 weeks worth of tolls, and the agent had to go in and do updates, and we fought and back and forth and back and forth, and it finally took probably 7 or 8 months before we finally got that check to reconcile almost 6 months worth of tolls. But again, we were doing the accounting, so we saw Larry caught the error first and went, wait a minute, where's all this toll money? And then we had to start backtracking it. But because we had all the data, we were able to go through and prove our case. And I have yet to lose a case. I've had a couple agents try to take me to before the gods of operations, and I've yet to lose a case because I come in with reams of data and they got nothing but emotion and attitude, and I whip them every time.
Another word of advice to you, BCOs, just like we recommend that you look at every line on a repair order, you should look at every line on your settlement every week, because it's not unusual that I find things on there that I don't know what they are. And after questioning or we won't get paid I compare the settlement to the rate con. Okay. And if it doesn't match to the penny, we're on it. Okay. So, and it's unusual that I get of course we get 14 trucks, but it's unusual that I don't get a settlement. I don't have to call and do some type of correction to. It's unusual. And sometimes it's a toll we were charged for because of a trailer they say we're hooked to that we weren't, or it doesn't match the rate con, or whatever. But we compare every line and every load, and we reconcile it to the settlement. And I bet you over the years I've been here, I bet that's added up to thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And BCOs, if you're not tracking every trailer that you're hooked to, you're playing with fire.
You're paying for a lot of tolls you don't know.
Yeah, because you've got to know when and where you dropped it. Because the agents are supposed to, but they just don't. And I'm not gonna jump all over them because it's not easy to do. Especially when you got thieves that go in and steal trailers, or customers that screw them around, and it's just not an easy thing to keep track of. I remember when I went to Swift orientation after my truck blew up, the lady said they had 80,000 trailers, and there was about 6,000 of them that they had no idea where they were, just gone, so trailers are hard to keep up with. So you at least need to know where you got it and where you dropped it. And then if there's ever a question, you just go into your spreadsheet, you search that trailer number. Oh, looky here, I dropped that in South Carolina.
Well, there's a lot of tolling, but we have a transponder in every truck, so we shouldn't get charged for any tolls, with few exceptions. So when I see a toll, I know there's a problem, so the first thing I look at is I call and request a copy of the toll. Okay. And when you get the copy of the toll, there it is. It's a picture of the license plate. And also the trailer number usually is visible in the picture. All I got to do is go back and look at where we were on that day and the trailer number we had. And then I can go back and prove where we left that trailer and when, So but I mean, that happens a lot. Okay. That happens a lot. So keeping it. Now, here's another thing. You've heard BCO say that Landstar comes and takes their trailer. from them and it hasn't been gone 10 days, or whatever. No one contacted them. The reason that doesn't happen is because they try to contact the person who they think the trailer's attached to, and that's not you because
Yep.
it was never switched to you. So if you're pulling a trailer that's not on you in the system, and you can check that by going to Landstar Online and looking at your availability and looking to see what trailer number you're hooked to. If that's not hooked to you and you end up getting it stolen, it's because they couldn't contact you and let you know they were coming after it. So had that happen a lot too. So it's important for you to understand that.
Keith says that listening to our podcast is a requirement for his drivers. So you're into torture. You're torturing your drivers. There's probably a federal law against that.
Well, Keith, we've got a subscription rate that we could give you for this. If you want to send your drivers, we got orientation coming up this weekend. Okay, so we've got 2 or 3 new guys coming on. So
I do a monthly Zoom call with some friends, kind of all over the world, and we were talking today, and someone had a question. It was something like getting trustworthy information about whatever it is, world events or politics or whatever. And I said, there's something weird about human psychology that Landstar has a phone number for the switchboard, and you can call that switchboard and say, I have a question. And they will connect you to the department that is in charge of whatever that question or issue that you're having is. But do we call that phone number? No. We go to Facebook and we ask people that don't have the answer to make one up. And it's just fascinating to me why human beings, will bypass, call contractor services and say, hey, I have a question about X. And they'll, oh, well, I don't have that answer, but permits does. Let me connect you to the permit department. Or how do I get a passenger authorization? Well, don't ask Facebook, ask Landstar.
Well, here's the reason that's illustrated why you shouldn't. If you look at those questions, there'll be 18 replies. They'll all be different, but only one of those is correct. That means 17 of the 18 was the wrong answer to begin with.
Yeah. It's just kind of fascinating that, which I get, you want to ask a person that has experienced it, I guess, but you're literally have a telephone in your hand, or you're on a computer, or you could Google the answer, and do some research that way. But that's just fascinating to me.
Well, it's easier to do that, and you can also accede authority at that point in time. Well, they told me to do that.
Yeah, I read it on Facebook. It's got to be true.
I didn't make that decision. Somebody else told me about that. So it's always easy to hand that blame to somebody else when you step on your, gonads. So there's one this week about a brand new guy. Well, a guy added a second truck, and he asked a question about did he need to register his fuel card for the second truck for direct deposit, and he got every answer he got was wrong. I finally answered and told him the right way. So it's
which followed by, well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, no, actually, what followed was the guy goes, "Thanks for the answer, I love your podcast."
It's funny to me in a weird kind of way, because since 2017, so now for 5 years, I have told this story of what happened to me and whose fault it was. And it's just comical that some of these goons on Facebook it's almost like they pretend like I didn't tell the story. Oh, well, you did this, that, and that. Well, yeah. I've got a podcast about it. You want to go listen to the whole damn story? We've done 125 episodes, and y'all act like we ain't never told the damn story. Well, if you don't know what it's like. I'm like, I know what you're going through times 17. I've got plenty of experience that trumps your whatever.
Well, it's no fun if you can't, if it doesn't support their narrative, it's no fun. So,
yeah. Oh,
I had to just finally quit participating. You rarely see me on Facebook, rarely, um, because I get too pissed off, and it's just not. My health is more important than that. So my well-being. So we got new drivers coming on. We got orientation this weekend.
Yeah, be broadcasting from the Lunatic
Be
Lounge.
Saturday night. Yeah, we'll be coming to you from West Virginia on Saturday night. Usually, when we come to you from West Virginia, we're having adult beverages. Of course, I think Chris was drinking beer last week from the house.
I was. But, I might go have another one.
That usually picks it up a little bit. We probably might even have some. A lot of our drivers show up when we're in West Virginia because they love. They know I'm going to cover the bar bill and take them all out to that place he's talking about to eat. So they show up to. So we might have some drive. We'll have Richie there next week, and
no, Richie's been. I bet you Richie's been to 15 orientations. You know.
Oh, I guarantee you. He and Christian are of course. Christian lives there now. He moved to West Virginia, so. But that's good. I'm glad they do it. We enjoy seeing them. We don't get to see our guys very often, and it's kind of a compliment that they'll come back on their own dime and come spend the weekend in West Virginia just because we're there. So, I appreciate that. So, all right, what else we got going on?
Didn't you share? You shared something with me on Facebook this week. I think that was some kind of story.
A story?
I thought it was.
There was a cost per mile calculator I shared with you.
Yeah, but I was thinking it was a story that we probably should have been talking about.
Okay.
Oh, so Landstar announced on August 18th that third-party carriers can now view and book loads from the Landstar One app.
That's true. I did send you that.
Now, I don't know really what that's going to do for them because I still don't think they can see the money. But I guess it just gives them access to that board. Now it's, you know what? This is funny. So I'm looking at the image that they used, and it's the same load posted 3 times. It's all the same agent, but that's. I think I would have picked a different image. Maybe show.
Hey, I've got a public service announcement. If you're new to Landstar, and you think you're the first person since when did Landstar start? 1985, something like that. You're the first person since 1985 that's noticed that there's duplicate loads on the load board. Just save it, okay?
Yeah.
Just save it. All you're doing is showing that you're brand new. All right. When's Landstar going to fix this load board? Why can't these agents take these duplicate loads off?
I remember what it was now. It was this.
Oh yeah,
Gary Bucks wrote an article about Steve Cron's 2001 International that has gotten has tracked 1.2 million miles on profit gauges with this truck between April 2015 and April 22. Cron's kept up an average above 10 mile per gallon on 583,000 miles.
2010 to 20, 12 years, 12-year average. The lifetime average is 9.38, and the most recent is 11.84. Now, you're going to talk about the comments?
I am.
Okay.
So Larry shares this post from Facebook. Where Overdrive had shared it, and the comments, oh my God, what a bunch of bootlicking amoebas. That all they could do was bust on the hood. Oh, the hood, that looks dumb. It's BS. It's not true. There's no way that's true.
It's an ugly truck. It's an ugly truck.
Yeah, it's an ugly truck. That's not possible. What my favorite thing about it is probably in 2012 or so.
Go back and look at the cost per mile on that. Scan up.
Cost per. Oh, well, I got to go on the right screen here.
Get to profit gauges. What is
Yeah.
it? 36 cents fuel cost per mile. Okay. 36 cents fuel cost per mile.
Over 1.2 million miles.
Yep.
I mean, that's great. The fuel surcharge right now this week is 63.
Yep.
You know, but I think it was back in 2012 or somewhere thereabouts. Shell Pennzoil did something with government money and spent, I mean, an astronomical amount of money on this super fuel mileage truck that got the same fuel mileage as what Steve has gotten with a homemade truck. And I mean, and I'm talking, they spent probably $1 million.
It looked like a bullet train.
Yeah. And here Steve did it with a homemade 2001 International with a 60 Series Detroit. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just incredible what he's been able to do with that truck. And to see the goons, you know, the amoebas on Facebook, you know, just, I don't know. It's people are dumb.
Well, it just shows that misplaced aggression and not under, you know, all they could do was talk about the truck because it didn't, it doesn't look like their trucks. Okay. But and no one acknowledged the fact that his cost per mile is probably to a third of what theirs is. And the benefit that the profit that goes along with that. And again, I go back to what I said before. Why are we doing this? We're doing this to look good, or we're doing it to make money? You know, we always get these people that talk about how, yeah, but these people out here driving these new trucks, they're making it happen. You know, are they really? How many years have they not filed tax returns? How many payments behind are they? You know, you don't really know. I mean, listen, you can look good for a while, and then eventually you have to give that truck back. Okay. Pretty sure Steve Crone's not going to worry about that. Okay. Pretty sure he's not in danger of losing his truck to repossession when as a result of the fuel and the rate crisis. Because he's in business to do the right thing, make money. You know,
I'm looking at some of these comments. Probably has a bad odometer and bad at math. Nothing this man is doing will get over 11 mile per gallon on an international. BS. Another one said, because his average speed was 59 miles per hour. 59, another truck in everybody's way. It's just funny. People are just dumb as a brick.
Well, it just goes to show you what's important to most truck drivers, and what's not, and more importantly, what's not.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, I don't want a truck that would pull good and go fast, and
I've never seen another industry where people hate money as much as they do in trucking. I've never seen it.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Almost as much as TA hates money. I can't remember if we talked about that conversation that I called TA customer service and asked them, why do they hate customers and why do they hate money? Well, I assure you that's not true. I assure you from this side of the table, it's 100% true. Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked earlier if my praying to them at BCO days didn't work.
Yeah. No, unfortunately not. It did not work. Well, hey, we had a tire. We had a rim get tore up last week, an aluminum rim, 22.5 rim on a trailer. And when they took it off, we just bought the trailer. And it turns out one of the inside rim was bent a little bit, so we had to replace both. And I had about 5 different phone calls where I said, I need 2 tires and 2 aluminum rims. And I get the truck. I see the truck today, and there's 1 steel rim and 1 aluminum rim. I was on a 3-way call with LCAP explaining No, you can put an aluminum rim on there. That's what we need you to do is put an aluminum rim on there. Yes, it's fully authorized through LCAP. And they still didn't do it. Like, I don't know how you screw that up from 5 phone calls and a 3-way.
Well, we didn't know they didn't do it till today.
Yeah, I didn't know they didn't.
At no point did they tell us that they didn't do it. They just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, they'll hear about it tomorrow.
Listen, Richie is obsessed. He wants flames shooting out of his exhaust. Now, I did see a video the other day on TikTok that you can do that with a dozer valve gets stuck open on a Cascadia. It will turn that exhaust pipe glowing bright red and shoot flames out. Now, we don't want to talk about fuel mileage with flames shooting out of the tailpipe.
Yeah, the only flame shooting out of him be coming out of his ass, okay?
All right. Well, I don't see any more comments or questions in here. I think we can probably go ahead and shut her down for another week.
Well, remember, there's 87,000 new IRS agents being hired that carry guns, okay? So just...
By the way, did you see the training video?
No.
They had these people with like vests, right?
Yeah.
And plastic guns. And they had this guy in a wheelchair. And there's this dude standing in front of him with his arms behind his back, and dude in a wheelchair with his plastic gun. I thought this is Babylon Bee, this is Onion, and it was 100% real training video for IRS agents, and it looked like the biggest clown show I've ever. I thought, please God, please be satire, but nope, friends, it was real, and it was precious.
Well. They're coming for you, okay? They're coming for you. You don't have to worry about AB5.
Yeah.
Not going to be necessary.
All right. Well, we will see y'all back here at 9 p.m. Saturday night, live from the Lunatic Lounge. And until then, everybody be good and be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, be safe this week, or watch out for the CVSA guys, okay?
Yeah. Thank them for their service.
Don't get your hoses chafed, okay? So
yeah.
We'll see you next week.